Hey, it's Ken from Shop3D.ca. Welcome back to another monthly webinar. This week, we're going to be talking about filaments. Now, if you're using your Raise 3D, Ultimaker, or Bamboo Lab printer, you're going to be going through a lot of filament. So let's hear from my team about what their go-to filament is and what their favorites are. Now, there's a whole range of filaments you can choose from with different characteristics, such as softer filaments like TPU, where you can compress it, to much harder filaments like polycarbonate, where it's also very chemically resistant. So it really depends on what your application is. But let's go to my team to see what their favorites are and what characteristics suit their application.
Hey, I'm Michael, a B2B sales associate here at Shop3D.ca, and my favorite filament is eSun's PLA+. I really like eSun's PLA+ line due to the wide variety of colors. As you can see, we've got their green in front of me here, kind of a nice forest green. And in addition to having a wide variety of colors, it's also pretty strong for most of the things I make, so I don't need to upgrade to something more expensive and harder to print, such as ABS. So here we've got a World War II fighter, the British Mosquito. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of it was printed with eSun PLA+. It's got a great surface finish, so very smooth, and then also propeller spins well. This was printed in a few parts, so we've got obviously the propeller, the base of the body is printed in two parts. You can kind of see the seam down the middle, and then the wings were printed as a single part as well. So, without doing any post-processing or anything, it turned out great, has great surface quality and finish to it. And just really happy with how this came out. It's one of the models we brought to a trade show recently. One thing you'll want to know for eSun PLA+, or any PLA filament really, is that it's a bit tricky to do post-processing with, so such as sanding. With that low melting point, if you sand too aggressively, it's going to start melting and deforming. So that's one of the reasons why I like the eSun PLA+ line so much, is because you have a wide variety of colors, meaning that you don't have to do any of those sanding and painting to get a great result. Yeah, so eSun PLA+ is a great choice if you're looking for something colorful, fun, easy to print, although it is a bit lacking in terms of those mechanical properties, where if you have a more demanding application, you might want to switch to something that's a bit stronger, a bit easier to work with after the fact. So that's a little bit about my favorite filament, eSun's PLA+. I hope that you'll buy it, give it a try, and share the results of your prints with us.
Hi, my name is Staceyann. My favorite filament is Bamboo Lab PLA Matte. My reason for this being my favorite type of material is, well, the variety of colors that Bamboo Lab provides. A good example is I printed these little guys. They're called Metacaps from a certain video game franchise. And having the right shade of yellow was very, very important. My favorite color to actually print at the moment is lemon yellow, since during that project, just because of how bright and vibrant the color is. I had to print him in parts. He's a multicolor print. I first started off with lemon yellow and printed all, like the hat, the ears, the mouth, and the shoes. If you are working on a project that requires you to print in pieces and glue them afterwards, make sure the parts that are connecting are clean as possible, such as if you have something printing like, say, like this hat flat, try not to use a brim, because if you have to take the brim off afterwards, it's a little bit more not so much clean, if anything. I've had some issues before with lemon yellow printing like flat box surfaces where it was warping. Turns out I just needed to clean my build plate and I was good to go afterwards. I do print a lot of functional prints with PLA Matte, but depending on what it is, for instance, if it's a door handle, I print with something else. If it's less functional, more aesthetics, then I'll go in matte, just because I like the look of it better. It's just very clean, you don't see a whole lot of the layer lines, and for instance, if you're looking to print like little guys like this, or even like this, and you don't want to like get into like resin printing, or you don't have the space for resin printing, this is a good alternative way to at least dip your toes into that area first to see if you want to continue with printing like miniatures or whatnot. Well, there you have it. There's my little spiel, my favorite filament, PLA Matte by Bamboo Lab. We do sell PLA Matte material here at Shop3D. So if you're ever looking to maybe pick up a couple of spools, or if you're looking for a particular color, give us a call. Most likely I'll be the one to answer, and I'll be the one to help you out to see what you might need.
My name is Laurelle. I'm the office manager for Shop3D Mississauga, and my favorite material is the eSun eSilk PLA Gold, specifically the gold color. This is my favorite material because I've done a lot of projects specifically with this color just to avoid any kind of painting projects. I make a lot of props specifically for cosplay, and it just so happens a lot of my cosplay props are in gold, and this is the perfect gold that I need every single time. So I've done countless projects with this gold where I've had to avoid painting altogether. And it just has such a nice finish. It gets a lot of compliments, and it's very easy to print. So for anybody who needs something a bit user-friendly, this is my go-to. I 3D printed a compass for one of my characters, a big compass that just hangs off of my neck like this, and the entire compass piece, minus the necklace part, was all e-silk gold. And then one of my favorite ones was a harp about this big. I have pictures of it as well. A harp that the 3D print files were designed by the Dangerous Ladies, and all of it was printed in less than a kilogram of this material. So I didn't even have to use a full spool to get a lovely big harp for a cosplay that was very short notice. I had to prepare everything in time for a convention, so this material came in clutch. It was great. Because this material is only in 1.75, I've taken advantage of the Bamboo Lab printers, specifically the X1 Carbon or the P1S series. Otherwise, I've dabbled in Raise 3D before, and if this were available in 2.85, I would use the Ultimaker as well, but mostly Bamboo. It takes a lot of trial and error to get that perfect prop at the end of the day before you finally adhere all the pieces together. But you really want to perfect the file first, or you buy a fully finished file and then just print as you go with this one-off material. For someone who's a little more beginner level, sort of intermediate with 3D printing, this was definitely the material I wanted to go with so that I wasn't, fighting myself over print failure after print failure. This has actually been very nice. Cost efficiency, 100%. I mean, it's just around that economy level 3D printing material price. And for what you get and the price it's given, it's such a bang for your buck. I mean, it's a great material if you're trying to save a few bucks but also have a nice finish. Just around the $30 region, it's nothing crazy, and you get a full kilogram of material just to experiment with. I would say that a saving grace for materials to not shift on the bed, use a bed plate adhesion. Do not hold yourself back from using an adhesion. Get it, save yourself the time and stress. That's really the only tip and trick I could say, because I mostly print in PLA, and PLA is quite user-friendly. But if you don't want it shifting around the bed whatsoever, depending on what heat you're printing at, use a bed plate adhesion. Don't hold yourself back. When it comes to 3D printing materials, I am always one for aesthetics. So anything that comes with a nice shine, or if it's translucent, or if it has a sparkle, or it has added features on it, or if it's tri-colored, dual-colored, go with the fun stuff, because that is what makes 3D printing so fun. Silk is, any type of silk or any color of silk, it's such a pretty material, why wouldn't you want to try it, That's everything I have to say about my favorite material, eSun eSilk PLA Gold. Why not give it a try, It turns out just like this, it's super great. I hope you give eSilk a try, and thanks for watching.
Hey guys, my name is Shaw. I work in the technical services department, and I'm here to tell you about my favorite filament, which is PETCF by Forward AM. The reason why I really like the PETCF carbon fiber filament is you get the robustness of PET filament added with the stiffness because it's got the added carbon fiber. And for a composite material with carbon fiber, it is relatively easy to print with, and it offers a really nice looking surface quality. Usually I make some jigs for my CNC machine at home, extra tools that lay about, a lot of stuff that I put in the car also, so things that needs to withstand a certain amount of temperature. What you make for a car needs to withstand a temperature higher than I would say somewhere between 75 to 80 degrees. Sometimes I make little trays and stuff like that. I've lost my tray so many times. So I just basically redesign it and put it back. So with carbon fiber sort of infused materials, they're generally lighter than if it was just PET. The carbon fiber will decrease the density of the material and therefore saving you a lot of weight. The real purpose of why manufacturers add carbon fiber into materials is to increase the stiffness, so it offers more dimensional stability. Thank you for listening to me talk about my favorite filament, which is PETCF by Forward AM.
My name is William, and my favorite filament is TPU. So with the TPU, as you can see over here, right, it's from Esun, so it's both the black TPU 85A as well as the white TPU 85A. So these are actually quite flexible, so as you can see. So why I like them is that because of its flexibility as well as its durability. Like we have clients that who try out these basketball for like quite a while, and after, like, even though they like bounce it like pretty hard against the floor, it's actually able to withstand the force of that. So with TPU, there's actually two different like qualities. There's either the A series or the D series. So for the A series, it's actually quite softer. It ranges from 0 to about 100. So this is about 85, so it's quite flexible. But for the D series, it's actually quite stiffer. It's for the 64. So TPU is actually a bit more difficult to print than PLA because it's due to its flexibility. It's actually like sometimes it might clog up the extruder. So like what you would actually do is like print it at like much slower speed, for example, about half the speed of PLA, as well as you need to keep it dry or have a filament dryer because it actually absorbs moisture. What hardware I would actually recommend for choosing TPU is using a direct drive extruder. So it would actually pull the filament down instead of using a Bowden tube, which would actually push the filament from the back into the extruder. And sometimes like when we actually encounter like some issues where it actually kind of jams in the extruder because it's pushing a bit too fast compared to what the extruder can put onto the build plate. There you have it. So my favorite filament is TPU, and see you guys next time.
All right, it's my turn, and I'm gonna talk about polypropylene. And that's this piece over here. Now it's available in the Ultimaker variant, 2.85, but it's also available in 1.75 through Forward AM. Now this filament is very special to me because it's very functional. It's actually used for most end-use parts. It's a semi-flexible material that's extremely chemically resistant, very good layer bonding, so it's good for use with marine applications if you want to have this in the water, or if you want to make living hinges where it bends back and forth. It's actually very durable and very impact resistant. One unique thing about this is that it's actually very low density as well. So when you get a spool, you actually get a lower grammage for the spool, which sounds like it's a bad thing, but you're gonna actually get the full spool. It's just a very, very non-dense filament, which means that when you make parts, you can make very, very light parts that are very durable. So if you're doing drone frames and things like that, if you don't need it to be super rigid, this would be a very good impact resistant material, also chemically resistant, and it's very light. So it's gonna make your drone frame a lot less heavy than it would if you used a much more solid material. It is also unique because it's semi-translucent. You can see that with the layer bonding, that you can actually see the infill inside of this cap that I made for my cup, which fits perfectly and keeps my coffee warm. Other useful information is that you can see that the layer bonding, even though this is just a single wall, that the bonding is very good and it doesn't crack when you're squeezing it. So this semi-rigidity and the great layer bonding make it a very useful material to prototype parts where you're only going to use a single wall for printing with. So overall, polypropylene is definitely my favorite. Now it is a fairly difficult material to print with, so make sure that you're using some Magic Glue for polypropylene. This will help it stick onto the bed. And if you're printing very large parts, you do have to be careful that it might warp. So you might want to use a printer like the X1E, which has a heated chamber to make sure that the warping is at its minimal. So there you have it. Polypropylene is my favorite go-to filament.
Hey, it's Michael, and I'm back to give you some tips, tricks, and best practices when printing with different filaments. So starting off, when printing with filaments that have lower melting points, such as PLA, if you have an enclosed printer, you may want to open up either the front door, top door, what have you, to make sure that the filament doesn't start getting soft prematurely before it gets to the extruder. If it does, it can cause jams and print failures, so that's something to be aware of. Another thing you want to take into consideration is that if you're printing materials that tend to absorb moisture, such as TPU, Nylon, PETG, you'll want to make sure that you dry out the filaments ahead of time to get the best results. If they are too moist, it can cause print failures, stringing, and a number of other issues. To dry the filament, some printers, such as Bamboo Lab printers, have built-in drying modes, allowing you to put the filament into the printer and dry it that way. A more universal solution would be to get a filament dryer. That way you have a dedicated solution to making sure that those filaments have as little moisture as possible. Going to materials that print at higher temperatures, you might want to consider using a printer that has a heated chamber to make sure that prints are consistent and stronger. So this is going to apply to materials such as nylon, polycarbonate, and ABS. A heated chamber will also reduce the chances of your printing warping, meaning that you'll have more consistent prints and less failures. If you're printing with more abrasive materials, such as carbon fiber filaments, you'll want to make sure that you have the appropriate nozzle for that. So you'll want to first of all make sure that it's a hardened steel nozzle, that way it will be abrasive resistant. You'll also want to go usually with a slightly larger diameter. On most printers, they'll come with a 0.4 millimeter diameter nozzle. We recommend upgrading that to a 0.6 millimeter diameter nozzle, just to make sure that you're reducing the chances of a clog occurring. And one last piece of advice that we have is that when you're switching between different materials, because they have different melting points, and you want to make sure that you're not contaminating the new filament with the old one, we recommend using a cleaning filament. This will help purge any of the old filament out of the system so that when you're printing, your nozzle is nice and clean on the inside. That's been some tips and tricks for printing different filaments from us here at Shop3D. Next up is Ken, wrapping things up.
So you've heard from my team about what some of their favorite filaments are and what some of the applications are suited for those filaments. I hope that gave you some ideas of what you can do for your own projects. Now, if you're still unsure of what to choose, or if you just want to talk to us about what filament might be perfect for your application, just give us a call or visit Shop3D.ca. We have lots of different filaments available, some that we haven't talked about today, and they are some amazing filaments. So there you have it. Thanks again for joining us for our monthly webinar. Until next time. So thanks again for joining us for our monthly webinar. I hope you've learned a lot. So be sure to sign up for our next webinar, and I'll see you next time.
Peace out.